Most of us want to have more influence over things that matter to us. When I first started out in my role of marketing in higher education, I lacked some serious skills in the influence department. I found myself sitting around the conference table, listening to the ideas of the rest of the team, and finding myself unable to contribute fresh ideas that would stimulate better outcomes and set me up for the team to view me as a valuable asset. Although I had been in marketing for a few years at that point, I wasn't experienced with marketing to a higher education audience. So I suffered a little bit from imposter syndrome, wondering if they'd eventually figure out that I had no clue what I was doing, and maybe, just maybe, they had made the wrong decision in hiring me. I stressed about this for a while as I dug my heels in and tried to rack my brain for something creative, something influential, just something that would make me appear as someone more than a yes person, agreeing with everything everyone else came up with instead of contributing something new. This frustrated me on so many levels because I had been successful in other marketing roles. These ideas surely could transfer over to higher ed. The longer I worked in that environment, the more I grew confident that, you know what? Yeah, I did, in fact, have the creative skills and the know-how to contribute on a level that truly mattered. I knew I had it in me to be creative, but something was blocking me from bringing my best ideas to the table and helping the team create something valuable for our university. It took me a while to find my footing and figure out a way to flip that switch from being a seat warmer to a real contributor who people started to take seriously. So how did I do this? I'll tell you that it required that I admit I needed some tweaking in the development department. I had a lot of great skills, but I still had so much to learn about one of the most important skills that everyone needs, which is to be a critical thinker. What is critical thinking? In short, it's the ability to take in data, analyze and evaluate it, then from there formulate an educated opinion about it, and then share that opinion with others. Why is it so important? Well, listen, if you want to effectively lead others in any capacity, and this can be as a parent, a coach, an employee, an employer, a community member. In other words, in every conceivable life experience where you want to bring the best to a situation, you need to be able to think critically. According to Forbes Coach Council, 3 characteristics of thinking critically include being decisive, resourceful, and organized. Why are these traits so important? Well, being decisive is necessary in situations where people are looking to you to make a tough decision and make it with a confidence that they can get behind and support. The second component, being resourceful, is thinking outside the box, and this can be crucial in those times when obstacles stand in the way of progress. And then the third component, being organized, allows the solving of a problem to take on a systematic approach where all facets are considered and the best answer can be implemented with confidence. Okay, so all of this is great information, right? But what happens if you are not a decisive, resourceful, or organized thinker by nature? Does this mean that you'll never acquire this critical thinking skill and therefore be subject to living a life by other people's leadership and standards? In my case, I was told that I needed this skill by a former director. She sat me down and spoke frankly with me during a performance review, providing me with honest feedback that at first made me cringe and so angry. And in retrospect, it changed my life for the better. Being a critical thinker requires skills, and it also requires an open mind. I knew deep down I needed to open up to this beneficial criticism. I wanted to improve the way I interacted and contributed to my team, and the only way to do that was to listen to feedback of someone who had these skills and open up to learning how to improve my life. Let's pause here for a moment and take a look at luck and development. Like with anything else, a little luck goes a long way if you don't do anything. But that's the catch. If you don't do anything, you will need luck on your side, because that's the only way things will shift in your favor without any effort on your part. In my experience, I could have taken my director's feedback and tucked it away, ignoring it and carrying on as a seat warmer at the conference table. I could have waited on luck to sweep in to help me prosper. You know, some lucky stroke of information that would lift me and show off some creative part of my brain that I didn't even know existed. But if you're not a lucky person, then building the soft skill of critical thinking could help you out in life, as it did me. I like those odds better than waiting on luck. If you need a little help in the critical thinking department, like I did, it's all good. There are ways to increase this skill, and by doing so, you may find yourself in a better position to have influence over those areas of your life that you really want to impact. Be it with your career, friends, family, health, or a creative endeavor that's calling your heart towards it. Here are some tips that I gathered from the experts at Success Magazine, and I will put a link to this article in the show notes. Tip number 1, become self-critical. I know this sounds a little bit negative for someone who is always proposing positivity, but stick with me here for a minute. Critical has such an unfairly negative connotation attached to it, don't you think? The reason being self-critical is beneficial is because it's an incredibly useful way to grow. By questioning yourself, you open up to helpful analysis. And this is a great way to prevent the ego from closing you off from possibility. Without digging deep, you risk only flirting with the surface and not understanding the complexities beyond what is obvious. The best way to get around what you've always known and done is to challenge yourself to think outside the borders by asking, what exists there? What does it offer? And how can that information add value to my current circumstance? Tip number 2, become an active listener. If we have our sense of hearing, it should be pretty easy to listen, right? Not exactly. Most of us think that we are listening to someone when what we are actually doing is thinking over their words. So what we get is small pieces of information interspersed with our own beliefs. We miss a lot when we combine listening and thinking. To truly listen means to put our ideals aside and tune in to what someone else is saying with all of our senses. We ask them questions based on what they are saying so as to engage and lift conversation to a level where we can empathize and understand the reasons, motivations, and feelings behind someone's words. Becoming an active listener is not about sitting still and quiet. Think of it as a volleyball session where you toss a question, they answer, and you toss additional questions based on their answers. You do this all with a goal of walking away from that conversation with a better understanding of how you can help, support, and enrich the person seeking possible solutions or understanding. In the case of critical thinking, When you collect vital information in this manner, you are giving yourself more clues to solve issues, influence others, and lead with credibility. Tip number 3, learn how to analyze. To make informed decisions and engage with creativity, you need to understand how the pieces fit together. You can't write a convincing and compelling novel if you don't show how all the characters act, feel, and ultimately claim their victories. No, to write a convincing story, you must analyze all the components: the setting, the narrative, the motives, the flaws, the strengths, the trials and tribulations. To be successful in your efforts, you need to take all the facts, lay them all out before you, and explore them with an objective eye, leaving your pride and your preconceived notions aside. Objectivity is queen in critical thinking. It allows us the space to explore alternatives to our own dominant thoughts. The final tip, number 4, develop a forward-thinking mindset. It is hard to get where you are going if you don't know where that is. Planning can help direct your actions and prevent wasting time and precious energy. So if you have a problem that needs fixing, whether that's around a conference table filled with professionals looking to you to jump in and help, or that's within the pages of a novel that requires you make critical decisions about your character's deepest motives, you need to take time to think forward. What impact will an action have on a company, a relationship, or the outcome of a novel as a result of a possible decision? Who will be affected? How will they be affected if you don't propose a certain action? Thinking through possible future scenarios in this manner will help you better evaluate the potential success of your contribution to a meeting, conversation, or creative project. Critical thinking is a skill that empowers some of the greatest leaders, communicators, and teachers in this world. They succeed in career, relationships, and creative endeavors because they understand that to get to a point where others listen and respond to their ideas requires that they shed the need to hold tightly to their own ideals so that they can objectively acquire new concepts that push them past old standards and towards new ways of doing things, of interacting, of building opportunities that can lift them to greater spaces, spaces where real impacts are made. If you are like I used to be, uncomfortable with breaking free of old paradigms and suffering in silence at the loss of achievement as a result, take a moment to reflect on what you are trying to accomplish. I would like to challenge you to ask yourself these questions to jumpstart your critical thinking. What will it take for you to make impacts in the areas that you crave to change? Why is it imperative that you do? How will it add value? And finally, who will benefit as a result of your actions or decisions? To sum up critical thinking, ask great questions, my friend, and you'll get great answers.